Hello. We're starting a teeny tiny bit early, but I'm so happy that you're all here today. 来てくれてありがとうございました。私はAOI Pro のジュリーと申します。よろしくお願いします。My name is Julie Thomas, and I work for a Japanese production company in Tokyo called AOI Pro. You might have seen the booth out there in that little hut area. Please stop by and say hi. I'm sure they'd love to meet new people. So over the last 2 days, we've heard many different kinds of sessions on craft. In particular, film craft is the most important, I think, for a successful ad. And so that's why I suddenly thought of, if I'm going to talk about craft, who would I want to speak to? I've been very fortunate throughout my career to have worked with many directors all over the world. But this one director, I admired even long before we had the opportunity to get to know each other. He's been influencing pop culture since the 90s. So I don't know how old you guys are, but when I first started in this industry, that was the early 90s. Since then, he's gone on to direct over 500 music videos with such artist names as Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Britney Spears, Taylor Swift, Eminem, Maroon 5, U2, Janet Jackson. Can you imagine that? And if you combined all of those films, all those works online, his views reach the billions. Billions, billions, billions of views. It's hard to even begin to fathom that. I think that's like a dream that every advertiser dreams of, is that their commercial or their work will be viewed by millions. But his work has been viewed by billions. So it's with great honor that I'm able to present to you the craft of Joseph Kahn. I think you'll find it very interesting. So please welcome Joseph Kahn. Everyone, this is Joseph Kahn. I think that we sometimes form an impression or a mind of what the director may look like. How many of you knew what Joseph Kahn looked like? One person? So were you shocked? Were the rest of you shocked that it's an Asian guy? No offense. Yeah. He's an Asian guy who was born in Korea, but was raised in Texas. And if you're from America or know anything about America, Texas is like white man's country. So that brings me to my first slide. What was that like to be this Asian kid growing up in Texas?
Well, it was interesting because the world was different when we moved to Texas. It was in like 1979, and before that we lived in Italy actually, because my family moved around quite a bit. It was challenging.
Challenging in what way?
Because we were different. We were not American. We were an Asian family. When we went to America, it was actually, we lived very poor in the beginning. We were like, I think it was like 6 Koreans in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they moved there so I could become a doctor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's his mom. Now everyone knows Asian moms have high expectations for their children. Don't you agree? So, Joseph, what did your mom want you to be again?
A doctor.
A doctor.
Yes.
Okay. And in high school, he was actually doing what his mom expected of him. This here, the Future Medical Careers Club. Can you spot who's Joseph in the photo? He's in the back row with the glasses. So what happened? Why didn't you fulfill your mom's dream of becoming a doctor?
I was very close.
Yeah.
Because by the time I was taking high school, I was taking nothing but science classes. But the thing was, in high school, what happened is that I was in a class of 600 students, but they had accelerated classes. So if you made an A, you would be in a faster class. And even though there were only 30 Asian kids in high school, all of them were in the accelerated classes, and the classes were only 30 people each. So that's what my class looked like. Even though I was in Texas, I went to school with a bunch of Asians as far as I knew. I didn't even know what the white kids were doing.
So what happened in high school that made you decide not to become a doctor?
Because I was, in that class of Asians, I was the dumbest one.
Really?
Yeah, I barely made it. You know, I felt like there was peer pressure for me to join the Asian classes, but I was not as smart as the other kids.
Yeah.
So I just knew that, like, if I was going to be a scientist, like, I remember, like, doing a math quiz.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would make my grade, but I would take 15 minutes to do the equation, and some other Asian kid would do it in, like, 15 seconds. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to compete with this guy, and he's going to be rich and I will never be, you know? So I decided I would find my own calling, and I decided to become a filmmaker because one day my dad, Asian dad, decided to have, he bought a video camera because a lot of Asian guys love to golf.
Yeah.
And he made me film his golf swing.
Okay.
And while I was waiting there to film the golf swing, I started animating little salt and pepper shakers, and I was pretty good at it. And so from a very early age, I started playing around with the video camera and then decided that there was something to do with cameras. And I became a filmmaker.
Yeah, you say it that, yeah, I became a filmmaker. But today there was a session with the young directors, Fabulous Four.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting talk, but the whole landscape of how you become a director has changed so dramatically.
Yeah.
So, but before I go on to that, I kind of want to share this photo. I'm sorry. I just think it's just too great. This is his yearbook photo. I mean, did they really, really use that photo in the yearbook?
I don't think that the white people knew when my eyes were open.
Oh my gosh, that is, that's kind of sad. Okay, so, but like I was saying, the landscape totally changed.
Well, let me explain something. So this is me in high school. I was a big nerd. And what happened was that in my senior year of high school, I started shooting videos. And there was a competition for MTV to make a Madonna video. So I casted all the cheerleaders to be in it. And the video was submitted. I did not win. But I think that one of the things they told me is they thought it looked too professional. So it was a professional person that made it. But it wasn't. It was just me and my video camera. But afterwards, I would walk through the high school because I made this video. One day I was walking down the hallway. And remember, like, I was so shy, I would carry all my books in a book bag. I wouldn't even go to my locker because I was afraid to be around other people. And one day I'm walking down the hallway because I made this video. This cheerleader started walking towards me, right? And I put my head down, I wasn't looking, and they all turned to me and they went, "Hi, Joseph," because of the video. And I was like, okay, I should become a filmmaker immediately.
That's a great story. So, you graduated from high school.
Yeah.
And you went to film school.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
Well,
you dropped out.
Well, I went to film school, but I just realized that film school, I went to NYU. Today, NYU is like, what, $60,000 a year, something like that. Back then, it was still expensive. It was like $28,000 a year. My mother is a waitress. My father is a mailman. I just couldn't afford film school. I went there for a year, remembering that I probably couldn't finish. So I went to film school for a year, and I stole every class I could. I just walked into every film class whenever there was time and just listened and read. And I started shooting other people's films. So I knew that I was going to drop out. So basically, I took 4 years of film school in 1 year, basically stole all the classes, dropped out, went back to Texas, and started working in a movie theater. And it looked pretty grim because I didn't have any contacts in the entertainment field, knew no one in Hollywood. I'm in Texas, which is 1,500 miles away from Hollywood, and I decided that I was going to open up a music video company because I felt like that was the cheapest way to break into filmmaking. So I saved up $500 and then went around town with a video I shot for $2,000 and told them I shot it for $10,000 and opened up a business.
And you opened up your own business.
And that's what I looked like when I opened my business, telling people that I owned a company.
And that I'm a film director.
Yeah.
So at that point, how did you, because, you know, like we said, nowadays a young guy can pick up a digital camera, can even shoot a music video with his iPhone, can edit on his iPhone. I mean, you were using film.
Yeah, so I was shooting 16mm film. I didn't own any of the equipment. It was too expensive, and it was different back then. Today, you could open up an iPhone, film it, record it, and edit on your computer, and then you have a product out. Back then, you would have to figure out how to develop it, transfer it, put it on 3/4 tape. Like, it was an expensive process. And also today, you can have unlimited amounts of footage. If you want to go shoot something on digital, you can shoot hours and hours and hours with no ramifications. Back then, I was trying to shoot all my work on 4 rolls of film, which is about 40 minutes of footage to do a 4-minute video. And you had to be very selective. So I had a style where instead of just shooting randomly, I would shoot for the edit. Every edit was preconceived, and every take would be specific. So if a rapper wanted to rap a 4-minute song, you know, if they did 2 or 3 takes, you didn't have any more footage. So I had to have them rap 1 or 2 lines. And what ended up happening is that, I went around town, and the only people that wanted to hire me, and the only people who had any money, were drug dealers who wanted to make rap music videos. So I ended up going into the hood and doing videos for gangster rappers. And that was my first year and a half. But within like a year and a half, doing $15,000 music videos, I had done almost $500,000 worth of business. I mean, business was good and business was fast. And
so all these like black rapper guys were, I want a music video, I want a music video.
Yeah, so yeah. I ended up like running an office with 5 people. I was like 20 years old, and I had my own, and I was the only director, and just shooting video after video every 2 weeks.
So we have a short clip of one of his, first music videos, so you can see. And imagine him doing everything. He's the producer, director, cameraman, editor, driver to get it developed, everything. Yeah. So you went from directing rappers.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Okay, so I was doing that for a year and a half in Texas, and I was miserable because, like in the early 90s, nobody really knew what directors did. Now everybody wants to be a director. Back then, nobody really wanted to be a director. And I was doing gangster rap videos. And so I moved to Los Angeles, deciding I wanted to do bigger videos. And I remember, like, as soon as I got in there, everybody was like, here's this weird Asian kid with rap videos. And nobody gave me the time. No company wanted to sign me. So I had to start all over again. And so, I started building my career in Los Angeles, again, doing $10,000 music videos. But I'd say within 2 years, I just felt like you just have to do better videos than everyone. Within 2 years, I was doing $1 million videos. Like, as soon as I moved to LA, within 2 years, I was directing Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys and things like that.
And since then, you've directed so many different celebrities.
That was only a couple years after I was doing those gangster rap videos.
Wow.
Yeah.
So since then, I would think that people would be intimidated by the person that you are creating a story for. Mm-hmm. And I've read lots of interviews how you go about creating so different storylines for each of the artists that you work with. How do you go about doing that?
Okay, so I think one of the things was that in the early 90s when I started, the credible music videos were not pop. Like, even doing that, those were like $1 million videos. Like, in the industry at that point, like in commercials and music, and still to a degree today, nobody takes pop videos seriously. They don't think of it as artistic. They don't think of it as artful. Like, they confuse the subject matter for the craft, right? And so when I approached any of my videos, I always took the craft very seriously. Even if necessarily the subject matter is not the most intellectual subject matter, my approach was deadly serious in terms of lighting, shooting, editing, storytelling, concept, and things like that. And so when I do these videos, for me it's more of like it's an experiment in art, really. It just takes a very, very long time for people to understand that, and it took many, many years. I've been doing it for now 30 years, and only in the last 5 years do people even pay attention and go, oh, he knows what he's doing. But like the personal pursuit of the art is what's important. And so when you do that from that perspective, every concept is different. Because here's the other thing too. When I was doing these rap videos, I didn't come into it going, Joseph Kahn is a genius. No one said that.
But you are.
No, but no one said that back then.
Okay.
Right? Because when you do these rap videos, the rappers don't care about your camera work or how beautiful your lighting is. They care about, are you shooting a car? Is that girl's ass on film? They care about things like that. And what that really taught you is that while other directors had they were the geniuses and they were making art, I was more of a serviceman trying to figure out how to make them happy. And it actually created, on a weird level, filmmaking empathy. Because when you're trying to understand what someone else wants out of it, as opposed to what you want out of it, you're actually thinking from filmmaking from another person's point of view, which is the most important thing about filmmaking, the empathy of someone else. And I think that's, by the way, just as a side note, that's why I think VR and filmmaking are not the same thing. VR is always told from a first-person point of view. Whenever you do a VR experience, that is literally from someone's, you don't have to empathize with anything. The filmmaking is from the audience's point of view. Filmmaking is always trying to be subjective from someone else's point of view. The camera might be looking at somebody, but you might be looking at someone's eyes by looking at them. It's not the same as VR. So on a weird level, by doing rap videos, it taught me how to think like other people. That had nothing to do with me.
Interesting. But so if an artist contacts you, their label contacts you and say, we have this new track being released, so what is the process?
A lot of times when you do really big music videos, the artist has been thinking about an idea for many, many years, or like when they're making the song. So I think the biggest mistake a director has is to ignore that and say, I have my own idea, let's do my idea. And I don't think that's fair to the artist, because like at the end of the day, if an artist spends a lot of money, that's their money and it's their art. And so you have to drop your ego and become part of the process, you know? So for me, I listen very closely to what the artist is thinking about the song, what the initial images may be, and it may not be accurate. It may be completely impossible to do, but you use your filmmaking experience to then wrap around. Because someone could say, like, I want to shoot in a desert and I want an airplane flying around.
Yeah.
That's not a concept, but that's what the artist feels. And then as a director, you then extrapolate that into 3 minutes and structure it from beginning to end. And then a lot of people go, I don't even want to do the airplane in the desert because that's a stupid idea. But I think if you go about it from that approach, you're going to miss something interesting by not being able to look through the other person's eyes.
So I think that advertisers would love you then, because you're taking their idea and bringing it to life. And making them happy with how you brought it to life.
Well, I think music videos have been a very good training ground for advertising, actually.
And that's one thing unique about Joseph. He's able to switch gears and jump genres between music videos, commercials, short films, feature films. And there's not a lot of directors out there that can do that. They kind of like stick in their little niche, and they don't go out of that. Okay, now, here's a photo of you operating the camera. Again, I've seen you on the set. You can jump behind any camera, you can push the dolly, you'll pass off the camera, run back to the computer and start editing. I mean, you can do everything on the set. And is that because of your beginnings of the rapping?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things. The first thing is because I started in low-budget rap videos, and I shot in dangerous neighborhoods. I couldn't really hire anybody because back in the early 90s, all the crew members were white in Texas.
Oh.
So none of the white crew members wanted to go into black neighborhoods and shoot. I didn't know this because I wasn't that aware of race relations. I was in Asian classes, so I didn't really know what was going on at the time. So when I went to these black neighborhoods and people were talking about gangsters and drugs and prostitution, the nerd in me thought, oh, that's just made up. Like, that can't possibly, that's like a movie, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like a year into it, I was like, wait a minute, this stuff is real? And it's actually all around me, and I had no idea. So by having all these people reject working on my stuff, I had to learn how to do the cameras myself, learn how to edit, learn how to light, learn how to move all the equipment. And to this day, it's still a skill set that I have.
Yeah, and again, not many directors can do that. They don't know the first thing about choosing the perfect set of lenses or how to even edit themselves. So, okay. So now we go on to advertising. So because you've influenced pop culture since the 90s, and that's something that I think every brand and advertiser wants to be a part of, to be a part of pop culture, or it's influenced by pop culture. Do you think there's a difference in your approach from commercials to music videos to short films to features? I mean, do you get into a different mindset?
Yeah, I think that there's a big difference between commercials and music videos for sure. Because on a music video, I am essentially the advertising agency, and the client is the artist, and there's almost no separation. I'm working directly with the client, and I am essentially a directing advertising agency. When you work in advertising, it's a whole different thing. These are not my ideas. These are things that other people have been working on for much longer, and there's two layers of complications. There's a client, and there's an advertising agency, and you're kind of like in between everything, and so you're more of a facilitator on a certain level, right? And also in a music video, because it's 4 minutes long and there is no direct correlation between every little shot and a very specific purpose that a client wants. Sometimes it's just an expression of an idea. You can just be a little more free and apt to go into some weird tangents that may not have direct correlations to demographics or purpose or a company agenda. It's just, you're just trying to express a song. So when I do advertising, one of the things that I've found very difficult in my transition, I've been doing it for like advertising for 15 years now, you have to let go of some very specific editing ideas sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like for instance, I love to frame things Spielberg style, where things happen on screen and the camera pans and someone's over here and it's all locked into your camera movements, right? And so like you might deliver a 6-second shot that has very specific blocking. I find actually that a lot of people like that on set, but then when they get into the editing room, they hate that because, you know, the client says, well, why don't we cut here? And then you didn't give them any options, and all of a sudden you have a broken piece of filmmaking that doesn't look like anything. So I've actually had to learn how to do a very modular style for advertising, where you shoot shot specific, and the way I imagine it is that I'll build a beautiful china plate, then if the advertising agency and the client want to smash it on the ground,
yeah,
it still looks pretty.
Which often happens, don't you agree? No, just joking. So, but you've actually directed commercials for like Maybelline, Adidas, Amex, Samsung, who was just speaking just earlier, and this spot for Turkish Airlines. Have you guys seen this before? Unfortunately, I don't have the film here, but this was in 2015. YouTube had been around for about 10 years, and they chose the top 10 ads of the decade. And this was the #1 ad. It had how many views in 3 days? 20 million views or something like that?
100.
100 million
I don't know,
views.
90, I don't know
yeah,
what it was.
But look at this now, 146, like almost 147 million views. And that's just on the official upload. That's not even including all of the Messi, you know, Kobe fans that uploaded it again on their own little YouTube channels. That is quite amazing. They really got a return in their investment, don't you think? Okay, so now, so that was a huge viral hit for that advertiser. You have created another viral hit. How many of you saw that film? Power Rangers. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I decided to make a short film. Every couple years, I will shoot a movie with my own money. Mm-hmm. So like I made a movie in 2011 called Detention. Spent a couple $1 million on that. And then I made a movie called Body, which is coming out. And I made this, in between I made a short film called Power Rangers, where I basically decided to take the Power Rangers and make them super violent and super dark. And people like go, oh, Joseph, like, why did you spend your money on something like that? But here's the reality, like, the thing costs like $250,000. And if I had spent $250,000 on a Lamborghini, yeah, everybody in Hollywood would be like, oh, Joseph bought a Lamborghini, good for him, right? But if I spend $250,000 on a short film, they go, well, he's crazy, he's nuts, why would he do that? Which is very odd to me. Like, why do we accept spending money on material things instead of our own art? Which makes no sense. So, like, what I'll do is that I'll do commercials, I'll do music videos, and I'll work with her. I'll be the greatest client-friendly director you could possibly have. I'll work my best to make sure it's everything, but every once in a while I've got to do something specifically for myself. And so I made this, but I took a property that it was illegal. You're not supposed to take the Power Rangers and do anything with it. I took it, and I decided to release it. No one knew this. Midnight one night, when all the lawyers are asleep. And I just released it onto the internet. And by the next day, and by the way, Saban Entertainment, the people that own the Power Rangers, they found out, they got mad, they shut it down. But within 24 hours of shutting it down, we had 20 million hits, which was pretty phenomenal in terms of a viral thing, because up until that point, even like my Bad Blood video had the most views in 24 hours, and that was 18 million hits or something like that.
Wow. And
we had like no warning, no advertising, nothing. It just instantly went viral.
Amazing. Okay. Oh, I skipped. So here you are at the 2015 MTV Video Music Awards, and this was for Bad Blood, right?
Yeah.
Now, I've asked you, which award, because he's won Grammys, Emmys, Clio, the Icon Award at the UK MTV, like UK version of the MTV Awards, the Icon meaning legendary filmmaker for life, lifetime achievement. Which of all the awards that you've won are you most proud of?
None.
See? That to me is sort of a shocker.
Yeah. Well, because, I mean, I appreciate awards, and it's always nice to get the next job because you won an award and it gets people in attention for you.
Yeah.
But on a weird level, I've never done this, and I'm being very honest with you, I've never done this for money or awards. For me, I've always been pursuing filmmaking, and I've been interested in concepts of editing and framing and shooting and storytelling and what filmmaking is and what the meaning of cinema is. And it's like an endless journey. And when I do a commercial or a music video or anything like that, there's always a learning process. In fact, sometimes the most fun part of working on commercials is to get into other people's heads to understand what they think about their ideas and learn new things. So the process of exploring ideas is more important to me than necessarily the outcome, you know? And whether or not someone gives you an award for something is on a certain level kind of irrelevant, because remember, for many, many years, I was doing all these pop videos. When I did Britney Spears' Toxic,
yeah,
which is now considered one of the most classic videos of all time, people made fun of me. They said, oh, that's not like a really cool video. He's not doing a video for like, I don't know, who's cool at the time, Chemical Brothers or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, people would go, he's just a light pop director, you know? And so if I had listened to people then and changed my style pursuing like, you know, importance, then I think I would have derailed my career. And I've never approached the art pursuing the accolades of people that I don't really care about. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to make filmmaking and get better. So the awards are good for strategic reasons, but ultimately they have no bearing on a day-to-day basis of what I'm trying to do.
Okay, social media.
Yeah. So, social media.
You are on Twitter constantly.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it that important? I mean, what gratification does Twitter have for you, and how important is it to your career?
Okay, well, one, I don't party like other directors, okay? Like,
He doesn't drink.
I don't drink, I don't party, I don't hang out, I don't go to things. I barely do things like this, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a friend, and so we're not paying him to be here.
Yeah.
He's just a friend, and I said, will you come and speak? Because I love hearing him talk about craft.
Yeah, so for me, the interaction with the greater world is very limited because I'm working on set, and you can be on a bubble. Like when you work as much as I do, what do real people think? What do real people live like? What do real people say? What do they like? What do they hate? So that's why I'm on Twitter, so that I can interface with the world. And it's like a feedback, an instant feedback response. And it keeps me, at least on a certain level, understanding what teenagers think. Why would I know at my age bracket what a teenager thinks? So one, I'm interacting with it. And two, I've realized that in today's world, the idea of an artist is very different than when I started out. When I started out, like Steven Spielberg, you would never in a million years think that he could talk back to you or you had interaction with him. Today's world, because of like the new set of filmmakers who are on YouTube all the time, kids have an expectation that you're accessible, that you're there in their lives, that it's a building of trust. And even though my Twitter may be controversial at times, people know that I'm being very honest. And so on a certain level, they trust me when I say I like something or I dislike something. And that's a very important thing in terms of building an audience, quite frankly. And even though my Twitter numbers aren't necessarily the highest numbers in the world, one thing that's also happened is that I have very important social media people following me.
Yeah.
For instance, when I released Power Rangers at night, like think about this, how did it become viral? How did 20 million people see it by the morning? It's because like I've made so much noise on Twitter, like, you know, big websites like Hollywood Reporter, Entertainment Weekly, NBC, just any big media bracket has already been following my Twitter. All I had to do was at midnight tweet out my thing, and literally every media outlet had already grabbed hold of it, and by morning, all written articles. And that's the power of social media.
You know, today I was tricked by your Twitter, because here's my latest video. And I'm like, what? He's never told me about this, that I've been working really hard on. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, we're speaking later today. And I click on it, and it's a video about a man saying how dangerous pit bulls are. Yeah, because he's always, tweeting about the dangers of pit bulls. But I was tricked into that. Yeah, I have to tell you that little story. Okay, next. Now, this is a post that I stole from your Twitter. And it's a sketch, and I've heard about this before from you. And you have devised it even more high-tech, but in the old days, you would look at a film and break it down shot by shot. Can you tell us a little bit more about this and why you do it?
Okay, so one day I was watching Social Network, which I love that film, and I've probably seen it like 4 or 5 times, studying it and stuff like that, and I just felt like I was inefficiently getting the information I wanted. So one day I looked at the first opening scene, and I drew out every edit. Not every shot, every time he cut. And I would look at the edit, and I'd draw it out, and I would put in the lighting notes, the camera composition, the meaning of the scene, the meaning of the shot. And I kept doing this. The next night, I opened up the next scene, did it again for an hour and a half, and then for a year I did that. For a year, I drew out every edit of the Social Network. Can you
believe that?
Until I finally figured out everything I wanted to know about that film. And I've done that to a bunch of movies since then. And it's just the process that I have.
Yeah, but I mean, I know a lot of directors, and I never hear them talk about this type of passion for their work and never wanting to stop learning. That's what's so cool about you. Okay. Now, you've done 3 features, and you just told us about your Power Rangers. The first one, Tork, was a studio film.
Yeah.
Can you kind of just briefly walk us through your 3 features?
Well, one of the biggest problems I found is that transitioning into feature films, which I really wanted to do, the problem is when you're a music video director and coming from the advertising world, we value the next idea. We value what is the new technique. We value what is the new aesthetic. We value what is the new idea. But it's for a contained audience. The audience does not have to pay for this stuff. The audience automatically watches it. And so they view it from a different point of view. What I've learned on films is when the audience pays for things, they don't want to see your experimentation. So Tork was a very experimental studio movie. If you really watch it, it's got a lot of like very interesting camera work and ideas and filmmaking ideas. But it was almost like 10 years ahead of its time. And now people come back to it and go, it's a cool movie. And there's like lots of cult movie articles written about it. And so every one of my movies have been sometimes just a little too pushed. So the only thing I can say is that Bodied, my latest one, is a little bit more restrained. I'm trying to keep in touch with the audience as opposed to going too far ahead of them, and that's a big struggle.
You know, the last speaker, she was just saying about how, or was it, no, it was Nick's one. The attention span has dropped so drastically in just this short amount. Watching Tork, felt like it was made for today's audience. So like you said, it was 10 years ahead of the time. Totally. You should really, if they have it on iTunes, if you can rent it, I think you would enjoy it. Okay. So, we still, I don't see the little number thing. How many? I don't know. Do we still have time for a few questions? Yes. So now, if you have a question that you would like to ask Joseph, I'll open it up to you.
In advertising, I want a producer that can interface with the client and the ad agency and make them feel comfortable, obviously, But more importantly, if there's anything I want out of a producer, is somebody who can give me everything I want for not going over the budget, like everything. So I want a producer that fights, that is clever, that knows how to use the money and make magic happen. Like whatever alchemy that I have, I want the equivalent in a producer. And that's just very hard to find, by the way. There aren't that many producers that can do that.
And the producer that you've been working with quite a bit recently is a woman.
I also work with other guys. It's all
I
over
know,
the place.
in the past.
Yeah. No, so I'm at a point now where the work is so big that for me to DP my own work would be very time consuming. And as I've gotten older, what I've realized is that the clients, and whether it's an advertising agency or an artist, wants to have a direct interaction with me. And if I'm there just setting up lights and operating cameras and all that, and I don't use a DP, then it feels very impersonal. So what I do instead is I build a very good relationship with a DP who I can communicate, and they almost have to predict what I think, or they just take my instructions very well, so that I'm not busy doing camera orders or trying to figure out like the pre-light on a set and stuff like that, so I can actually talk with the client and hopefully not miss something that they're thinking about. So it's very important, I think, these days. I could be a director DP, but I feel like it actually diminishes your client relation by doing that.
And I think the same approaches with your editing as well. You build up a relationship with your editor that they know how to...
Yeah, and sometimes, and I'll be honest with you, the other thing I do sometimes is I do use an edit, even though the edits are preconceived by me, especially on commercials, I love to have an editor interface between me and like the agency so that I don't become too personally attached to it. Like if I'm sitting there on an edit and someone says, switch out these edits and I feel it's wrong, they may actually feel the resistance. So it's better to have a third person there that interfaces between us so that it feels more civil. Like, you know.
No, but you also, what's unique about you is that you are editing on set.
Yeah.
So it's not like you wait to finish your telecine and blah, 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 and then, yeah, he's editing while he's shooting. So it's constantly running back and forth.
Well, and the reason I run is because in order to have the privilege of editing on set, what I'll do is I'll tap the video, the camera right into the video. I won't do a download and I won't like do a decompression of a QuickTime. It's a video feed right from the camera to the edit. My editor edits it. He might do a little chop, and if I want to check an edit, I'll run. Because what happens is that if you walk from an edit, from a camera to an edit, and then you walk back, you might lose 5 to 10 minutes just by walking. So I will run to shave it down to 10 seconds. And if you do that, then you can look at the edit, and you might save some time in the day. But if you just walk back and forth like a fat deep director or something like that,
or sit on the director's chair,
and you wait like you waste like 5 to 6 minutes. If you do that 10 times in it, you've lost an hour of time. An hour is a lot of setup time. So I will run to make sure that I squeeze it down to only seconds so it doesn't affect the shoot. I always feel that that's a good question, because I think sometimes I would give myself different types of advice. Like for instance, if I was on Tork and I was me and telling the guy on Tork, I would say be more political, don't be such an asshole, listen to people a little bit more. But then at the end of the day, if Tork had done well and become a big Hollywood hit, I don't think I would be as good of a filmmaker as I am now, you know? Like, I think that I would have been very arrogant and been like every other Hollywood director with a big hit on their plate and stopped learning. So I would say, on a weird level, keep making the mistakes that I did so that I have something to learn, you know? And if anything, it seems like every time I make a mistake, it teaches me to be better. So I would just tell myself to keep making mistakes. It's weird because I feel that the cultural value of work changes over time, you know? Like, for instance, a certain type of editing style that existed maybe 25 years ago when I started editing is different than something today. But that doesn't mean the thing I did 25 years ago is invalid. It exists within its own time frame, you know? And lighting styles change. And in fact, one of the biggest problems people have is that they perceive the current work to be the only valid work. But then 10 years from now, like, trust me, every work that we're doing right now, 10 years from now, people are going to look back and laugh and go, why did they do that? So on a certain level, I don't look back on the work that I've done as a series of mistakes. They just are, right? And the work I'm doing currently, I'm trying to fix the mistakes that I have right now, but in a current frame of mind. But once the work is done, it's now part of a historical record. There's nothing you can do about it.
Now, I didn't ask you this, but what kind of Asian influences do you have in your life?
Well, I'm Asian, so.
Other than that.
I think there are certain aspects like, I think that I'm very westernized, obviously, to any Asian person here in Asia. I'm a very westernized person. But sometimes to white people in America, they think I'm very Asian, right? Just because of my look. So I'm somewhere in between. And the one thing I will say that I feel is a little different from me from, say, a normal American person is maybe my Korean discipline. The entire idea of being able to break down a movie and just spend an hour and a half every night,
yeah.
If I think back hard enough, this probably comes from my dad, because when I was a kid, when I had free time, my dad would open up a book of, like a kid's book like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah.
And then he would make me take the words, because in Asia, calligraphy is very important, and your handwriting is very important. He would make me take Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and write every sentence over 10 times for an hour for that discipline, even though it was just English and no one really cares. So that distilled into me that sort of discipline of being able to break down movies and study them the way I do. But other than that, I think that aside from some things of like just loving Japanese animation as a kid, I'm a pretty westernized guy. Well, my dad was in the US military, and they did everything alphabetically, so A is in the beginning of the alphabet, and he hated jumping out of planes first, so he put a K to put himself in the middle, and he became Kahn after that.
Oh.
The first thing that happens is that every Taylor Swift video we do, no matter what it is, gets compared to something else, because she's such a big artist. Like, every view she gets hundreds of millions. So usually, believe it or not, I get compared to Korean pop videos. Like, I don't know, like Bad Blood was compared to some Korean, I mean, like literally every video is compared to something else. The other thing is that when it comes to ideas, the reality is every idea has been done before. And so when you have an idea of a girl dancing by herself goofy, and it's a white girl, it's a very thin needle to thread, right? It's going to get compared to a Sia video, you know, it's a goofy white girl. It's going to get compared to a Spike Jonze video. It's going to get compared to a Britney Spears video and stuff like that. It's a very thin needle. And ultimately, you just have to be truthful, because the reality is it's about her life. She goes to events. She's a goofy dancer. In fact, before anything happened, for 10 years, everybody thought that Taylor Swift was the goofiest dancer in the world. And it's her life. So ultimately, you have to be truthful to the idea. And if it gets compared to other things, just the nature of it. But in the long term, what I find is each art has its own point of comparison. And I think we in advertising get so hung up on whether something copies something else. Ultimately, the consumer isn't looking at it from that point of view. We as artists only look at it as from a technical point of view, like what's similar to what, because we are trying to create product, but ultimately the consumer doesn't look at it from that point of view. So the messaging is more important. And I think if we look at art strictly from a technical point of view, but not necessarily the messaging of it, then you're never going to get the real reason why people watch these things. It's not to compare camera shots or colors or even edits. People want to see what the message is. And the message of the video is very, very different than anything else because it's specific to her life. I mean, I have shot on film for many, many years, and I was my own DP for many years, and my opinion on film versus video is this. I think film is a waste of environment, quite frankly. I think if you encourage the industry to shoot on film, you're encouraging them to support a chemical process that's very damaging to the environment. So one, I'm just against it on ethical grounds, because it's wasteful. Look at how much rolls of film you actually have to do to shoot something. If you had an entire world shooting on these photochemical process, you're damaging the environment, number one. Number two is I think that digital is actually better than film now. This is my honest opinion. The biggest problem for the longest time is that people would say that digital was not as sharp as film. That was an argument from about 10 years ago. People said digital is not sharp as film. Now the argument is that digital is too sharp than film, right? It's a ridiculous argument. The second thing is that people would say that film exposes latitude better, that digs into the shadows more. But now that's not true. Digital is better at reading into the darks and better into reading into the highlights, and you can actually do things on digital that you can't do on film, like HDR or double exposures at the top, and then choose what you want to do. So then the third argument now is the slope of the film doesn't expose the same, because once you're in digital, film, once you get to a certain highlight, has a little bit of a gray area where you can expose a little bit, and then film used to be like black and white, it'd be 1 or 0, it'd go white or whatever, but that's not even true now. They have algorithms like Alexa cameras that slope off the top end. So literally anything on film you can do on digital, literally anything. And it also depends on whether or not you're comfortable with post, adding the grain back in or de-sharpening it or sharpening it or adding in the different things. I think it's an excuse. I think sometimes it's just DPs trying to protect their jobs and make it more of a mystery so that people can have more control. But the reality is I think digital by far is the way to do it. Like today, how would you like to like touch up your advertising on print? Would you like to use Photoshop, or would you rather take pieces of paper, clip them out, and spray paint them? It's the same thing.
Good analogy. Well, Joseph and everyone, we've run out of time, but you're going to be going to the party after this, right?
Yeah.
So if you have any other questions or you want to meet Joseph, he's a super friendly guy. Walk on up to him and put out your hand and strike up a conversation. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.